Hello, everyone. The Torah study this week in Yeshivat Elimelech is sponsored by Charlotte Rest in loving memory of her mother, Miriam Bat Yosef. And may I add that we are very grateful that my sister-in-law's surgery yesterday went well. Um, so let's continue with these laws of carrying on Shabbat. Sometimes extra buttons are sewn into a garment in a hidden area to be used as replacements in case one loses a button. We mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but this is actually bringing a machloket about it, a debate. These buttons are not used to fasten or decorate the garment. In fact, they're hidden like in a back pocket or sewn into the inside of the jacket in order to people not to see it. Some maintain that since these buttons are not in current use, yet are significant, one may not go out with them to Reshut Rabim. That's Chaye Adam. According to most poskim, however, one may go out with them since it is standard for these buttons to be attached to an item of clothing. They are considered a part of it and secondary to it. Also, if you took them out or cut them off and then misplace them, it will be completely, lost because then it's very hard to find the exact same button. Same debate pertains to a ripped hanging loop, which is sewn into a coat or jacket to allow it to be easily hung up on a hook. Normally, the loop is attached and functional like a regular button. However, if one side of the loop rips, as it sometimes do if we take it off quickly or something like that, it is not in current use. So the strict position would say the same like we did about the buttons, that it remains significant and thus one may not go out with it with such a coat to Reshut Rabim. And the lenient position would respond that regardless whether one intends to fix the loop or not, it is not considered significant and remains secondary to the coat. Thus, one may wear the coat in a Reshut Rabim, and that is the majority opinion, since the disagreement here relates to a rabbinic prohibition, because we're not in Reshut Rabim Deoraita, the biblical public domain. The Halacha follows the lenient position. So regarding this, I somehow remembered from learning way back when in Makor Chaim, that's not what it's called. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch of Rav Gansfeld was not replaced, but it's mostly for Ashkenazim. So Rav Chaim David Halevi in Israel wrote a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch mostly for Sephardim, and because the majority of the school I went to was Sephardi, we learned about this, and so it was discussed that if somebody's tzitzis, a man's tzitzis tore in a way that it is now pasul, if you are in Reshut Rabim, there was a debate. Well, you're not allowed to continue wearing it because you're not allowed to wear a tzitzit that doesn't have the proper four corners with the fringes. But on the other hand, it's a great embarrassment if you had to get undressed in the middle of the street. So that is actually what the halacha is. If you can go like to a side alley or whatever and take it off and leave it there because you can't carry a tzitzit psula from one domain to the other, then you should do that. But if you can't, because there is no such place, or you're afraid that somebody will steal it, then you can continue walking in the regular manner. But maybe I think, just like we did in the army, to walk the shortest way as opposed to a long way, even though you want maybe the exercise, it's still forbidden to carry a tzitzit psula in public domain. Again, it's rabbinical. Rav Chaim David Levi actually says that if it is a Reshut Rabim Deoraita, so in one of these highways or thoroughways, is when it happens, it has to be taken off immediately and just dropped where it is, basically, when you realize that it's a store. So, just as one may walk in a Reshut Rabim while wearing clothes because they are deemed secondary to his body, so too one may enter a Reshut Rabim with other items that serve him, as they too are considered secondary to his body. For example, one who is hard of hearing may enter a Reshut Rabim wearing a hearing aid. Similarly, one who is nearsighted may go out wearing glasses because the glasses are secondary to the body. However, one may not wear sunglasses in Reshut Rabim because there is a concern that when he reaches a shady area, he will take them off, put them in their pocket, and carry them. If one needs to wear sunglasses because his eyes are sensitive and he does not remove them even in the shade, then he may wear them in Reshut Rabim. We had a neighbor in Beersheba who was I forget the word in English. Lovkan. They only have white pigments. They're missing pigmentation. So she always wore sunglasses. Um, so if that is the case, then they may wear them in Shut Rabim. If one has clip-on sunglasses that can simply be flipped up when necessary without being removed from the glasses, again, he may wear them in Reshut Rabim, since there is no concern that one will end up removing and carrying them. And that's in the Shmuel Shabbat Kichata and the Elkut Yosef. So both the Ashkenazi and Sephardi Achronim that rule that way. If one is wearing an adhesive or cloth bandage to help heal or protect a cut, it is considered serving his body and may be worn in Reshut Rabim. Definitely, you're not going to take it off in the middle of the street because you won't have any protection, and to change the band-aid you do usually in your own house or somebody else's. Similarly, one with a wounded arm may go out wearing a sling. One whose ear hurts may go out with cotton in it, bite plates, and orthodontics. Retainers may also be worn. All of these serve the body and are secondary to it, and most of these we can't even take off so easily, especially the orthodontists. And so let's conclude with one more halacha pertaining to other secondary things that we might have: canes, seeing eye dogs, and wheelchairs. If one is partially disabled and needs a cane to walk, he may walk in a Reshut Rabim with a cane because the cane has the same status as his shoes, indispensable for walking. However, if he can walk without a cane, even if only with great difficulty, he may not enter Reshut Rabim with a cane. A blind person who normally uses a white cane to help him get around may not use it on Shabbat if he can manage without it. In such a case, so that's a person who's only partially blind. In such a case, the cane is considered a burden and may not be used where there is no eruv. But if they cannot manage without it, for example, if he needs to navigate an unfamiliar neighborhood, he may go out with his cane, and that's not a problem. Same thing with a seeing eye dog. A blind person may enter the public domain with a seeing eye dog, even though he is holding on to the harness attached to the dog. This is not prohibited, since the harness is always attached to the dog. It is secondary to its body, and there is no problem of carrying. So that's very innovative, and I know that even in shuls, they allow people to come in with their seeing eye dog, because even when they are sitting, usually the person needs the dog still holds on to that harness. So that's why training such a dog is such a great mitzvah. And so one who is wheelchair bound and propels the wheelchair manually may go out in the public domain with the wheelchair, as the wheelchair is considered comparable to his shoes. However, if the disabled person is unable to propel himself, he may not be pushed, just as a baby who cannot walk may not be carried in the public domain or a Carmelite. For the sake of a mitzvah, though, a non-Jew may be asked to push someone in a wheelchair. This is classified as shvut de shvut, meaning the prohibition of being pushed in public, which is not a biblical public domain, and the idea of telling a non-Jew. And usually, if you already have help, they know that is what is expected. And again, most of these laws aren't applicable to most Jewish communities because we have an eruv, but just in case the eruv falls, or if the place that doesn't have an eruv, we need to know all of these laws, and it is permissible for a great need or for the sake of a mitzvah. And so we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll talk about jewelry, which is discussed at length in the Talmud, and many examples. I probably don't know half the words for them, so I'll have to read carefully the Hebrew and the English, and we'll see you all later today.